Hi, it's Melanie, songwriter Michelle Birdsong in New York City. Today, October 13, 2019, is Christopher Columbus Day. He's been reborn as Melanie Lynn Speer. That's the picture you're looking at. She brought 4 souls who'd been saints in their previous lives to life as their mother. I'm her mother. New York Post online article by Eileen Rialto Siri and Angelo Vivaldi. Stop Scapegoating Christopher Columbus. Decoded. Christ for Christ, O for order, P for present, A her for her. Christ order. Present her his side. See identity. Like I said, Christopher Columbus' present-day identity is Melanie Lynn Speer. Why are we so eager to search out scapegoats for the injustices of history? Whatever the reason, Christopher Columbus is now the fall guy for the sins of slavery, the exploitation of indigenous people, the rape of national resources, and most of the legal, financial, and territorial abuses that followed the first European steps in the New World. Let me say that some people say this we should end Columbus Day and make it Indigenous Day, People's Day. That is August 9th. They already have a holiday. Okay? Alright. One of the people, Columbus, Melanie L. Speer, brought into the 21st century physical world is Chief Sitting Bull, who was Hiawatha, who partnered with the great peacemaker, Melanie's mother, the Michelle Birdsong. They worked together, Hiawatha and the great peacemaker. Hiawatha presented great peacemaker's ideas. He had a speech impediment. He was also blind and deaf. Literary success, Helen Keller. Hiawatha and the great peacemaker got 5 warring tribes to stop fighting. They united them into the great Iroquois nation. Hiawatha's name today is Ostara Gloria Turner. She is in the custody of, as described by her mother, pages are stuck together, of course. By her mother, Columbus, Melanie Lynn Speer, Ostara's mother. Ostara's in the custody of Satan, a terminally ill alcoholic father who she suspects is a pedophile. Ostara was the great Saint Kabir in a past life. You understand that was Columbus's child I was talking about. Okay. Columbus, Melanie Lynn Speer, also brought into the physical world the poet Saint Mirabai, one of the greatest gurus. She became the American-born Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who is now in a foster home. He is Lou Ruttinger. Dr. Wayne Dyer spent years in a foster home when he was young. He is due to come back into the physical world as Christopher Columbus, Melanie Lynn Speer's mother's child, November 4th, about 2 weeks from today. According to the mother, Michelle's birth certificate, she is 74 years old. Like all American citizens, her original birth certificate is in the hands of the Rothschilds banking family. If America defaults on the loan they made her, they own the labor, the taxes of each American citizen. Your birth certificate in the Rothschilds' possession is the way they keep up with the collateral for the loan, you and me and the rest of American citizens. Back to the Post article. Columbus is a 15th century man in a 21st century court, and the jury is stacked with self-righteous, injured parties who have 20/20 hindsight. Not excellent. Oh, note, excellent points these writers are making. Vilifying him won't change the unfairness of history, but it will delegitimize the outright and undeniable contributions of Western civilization. Note, the father of Western civilization, the ancient Greek philosopher known to have liked Socrates, is Christopher Columbus, Melanie Lynn Speer's mother, This Life, the Michelle Birdsong. Socrates was killed for questioning to find truth and for passing it on to young people. Post article continued. Tearing down statues to Columbus won't undo the damage from two worlds colliding, but it will make the progress and achievements that emerged from two worlds converging. Achievements. Talk and Share, a cure for madness, created by the Michelle with guidance of God. Okay? Columbus Day exists for two reasons. The first, Columbus was the explorer who completed four recorded voyages across the Atlantic, showing great courage, determination, and skill. His audacity and vision revolutionized worldwide human migration. Hundreds of millions of immigrations have followed his brave example over the course of more than 5 centuries. Song, Neil Diamond, They're Coming to America, from Jazz Singer movie. Today, Columbus's legacy endures in every immigrant who seeks opportunity and a better life. The second reason is that on March 14, 1891, Italian Americans hit a low point in the long, arduous hazing period that every immigrant group seems condemned to suffer before emerging into the status of respectable Americanhood. That year, an angry New Orleans mob lynched 11 Italian immigrants after they were cleared of murder charges. Perhaps the largest lynching in U.S. history. It was condoned by the New York Times and the future president, Teddy Roosevelt. Italian Americans desperately needed a hero to stand for them, someone to symbolize their contributions to their adopted land. The following year, Italian Americans in New York City erected a statue to Columbus at what became Columbus Circle and inscribed it, "To the world, he gave a world." So when the attack on Columbus is as virulent as it is, the Italian American community is understandably distressed. He is the icon who represents our presence here and symbolizes our enduring love for and commitment to the haven for immigrants. Critics assign Columbus the most malevolent personal motives. Yet cultural anthropologist Carol Delaney notes that Columbus himself never owned a slave, and in fact adopted an indigenous child as his son. Why must Columbus shoulder the guilt for the entire 15th century? Slavery was already here in the New World when he got here. So were cannibalism and human sacrifice, neither tolerated in the Old World. But the forces that shaped the New World were out of the hands of any single man. The doctrine of discovery, human greed, free enterprise, international competition spurred by Old World mercantilism, abuse of power, all unleashed on a playing field without rules. These are dangerous days for our republic. Note, the United States is a corporation. We are being pitted against one another as never before, weakening the pillars of our rational but still imperfect democracy. Note, when did we become not ruled, mob-ruled democracy? The founders gave us a constitutional republic. The attacks on Columbus feed into that conflict. Is this an attempt to obliterate the history and contributions of Western civilization, said one angry man at a recent meeting of Italian Americans? Another said it's an attack on Catholicism. Still another, it's an insult to all Italian Americans. Let's not take that path. Let's not squabble over injustices of the past only to wind up creating new ones. With the knowledge and tools we have acquired, let us remedy the unfair conditions for today and tomorrow, and let's do it together. I think that's a wonderful attitude. Indigenous Peoples Day should be a holiday, and it is August 9th. And November is Indigenous Peoples Month. Note, Indigenous. IND is the 8th Avenue subway train. Trained, I for pleasure seeking, GEN for generations, O for of, U for United States citizens. Indigenous, trained, pleasure seeking, generations of United States citizens. Indigenous is an adjective meaning originating. I dropped the phone. originating or occurring naturally in a particular place, native, the indigenous peoples of Siberia. By the above definition, you'd have to say, in addition to American Indians, American black people are also indigenous to America. Therefore, American black people have a right to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day on August 9th, as well as Indigenous Peoples Month next month. The Post article goes on to say, thanks to Christopher Columbus' efforts, the floodgates of immigration were opened. We were granted the possibility of a world, a new and just one. Many, many others have worked hard since then, but particularly over the past 243 years, to make that possibility real. It is up to us, the immigrants, to carry on. At bottom, we are all immigrants, whether we walked on an ice over Bering Strait with our Native American siblings. Note, American black people are native to America. See Stanford University study results on video called African Americans Aren't African. Note, the study has been removed, I guess. I couldn't find it. Basically, it said the Africans' DNA had disappeared, so that so-called African Americans were mixed with white DNA from countries all over the spectrum. Race is a social construct. Through this small sampling of experts, it is clear that race as a social construction is a common theory. All of the experts in this sampling say that biological race is non-existent. Note, people have been brainwashed, programmed into thinking different races are real. Race, therefore, must have been created by social societies. They were created to do what humans do, to serve the purpose of the majority, Wikipedia, or races were created by the less than 1%, the wealthy that run the world, to control the populations by dividing them into groups called races, and putting these groups at odds with one another as a distraction to keep us from realizing what the wealthiest, like the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, etc., are doing. The New York Post writers write, at bottom, we are all immigrants, whether we walked across and iced over Bering Strait with our Native American siblings. Note, American Indian siblings, or we can't. Oh, I see. They said Native American, and I said note American Indians. Okay. Or with our siblings, or we can. You know what they're saying here? The Native Americans came from the Bering Strait. Okay, an area called the Bering Strait. They weren't born. They didn't just always exist here. They came from someplace else. Okay, or we came in chains of desperation or hope from Africa, Europe, or Asia. We are all immigrants here. And we are all Americans. Okay, that's the end of the article. It's written by Eileen Rialto Siri. And she's a founder of the National Organization of Italian Women and Angelo Vovovo, who is president of the Columbus Heritage Coalition. Note: the American blacks, descendants of slaves, are the original Hebrew Jews, the killers of Christ, along with Herod, who is now Gary Bird. Okay, I'm running out. Anyway, they're guilt-ridden and they're attracting punishment. And they attracted the punishment of slavery. And they attract the punishment of poverty. That's all I wanted you to know. Happy Columbus Day. Melanie Lynn Speer. Thank you. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you, Columbus. Thank you, Americans, for listening. People for listening.